under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann? Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Breen?
Here. Item D, approval of minutes. Members of the board, I'll entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve the minutes.
by Mr. Lindemann,
I second.
second by Dr. Gomez. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Breen?
Yes. Item E, summary of current events. Ms. Samaniego.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, and members of the public. Parent-teacher conferences are taking place this Thursday at all of our schools from 1 to 7 p.m., so we encourage parents to go meet with their child's teacher. Ferris Elementary recently on Friday celebrated their letter grade success with all the kids and their staff on this past Friday. And just for your information, our Transportation and Security Department are starting evacuation drills this week on Thursday, and that will be happening throughout all of our schools for the next couple months. And that's just for practice. So just as an FYI, if you hear their schools are getting evacuated, that's why, because we're practicing. And that's it.
Okay. You have the Students of the Month?
Yes. Students, if we call your name, if you can please come up and get your certificate, and then we'll take a picture at the end. Our Clausen Students of the Month, we have Rodolfo Delgado. Favorite subject is math, and he would like to be a car mechanic when he grows up. Student honor roll is Ricardo Delgado. He's sick? Okay. Favorite subject is math, and he'd like to be a police officer, so we'll make sure he gets his certificate. Our Ferris Student of the Month is Misael Ramirez. Not sure if he's here. Oh, we'll make sure he gets his certificate. Student honor roll for Ferris, Gustavo Valencia. Not here. Our Joe Carlson Student of the Month is Maria Elena Corrales. Favorite subject is math and wants to be an architect. Angel Cruz is student on a roll for Joe Carlson. Not present tonight. Sarah Marley, Student of the Month, is Lynette Fragoso Moreno. And her favorite subject is writing and wants to be a police officer when she grows up. Student on a roll for Sarah Marley is Luis Dravos Fuentes. Favorite subjects are ABCs. He wants to be a veterinarian when he grows up. Our Stevenson Student of the Month is Santiago Pina Anguiano. Favorite subject is reading. Would like to be a graphic artist. Student on a roll is Rebecca Peña Lopez. Favorite subject is writing and math and wants to be a scientist. For Paul Huber Middle School, Student of the Month, Alicel Encinas. Favorite subject is science and wants to be a marine biologist. Rene Robles, student on a roll. Favorite subject is social studies and wants to be a construction worker. For Rayburn Middle School, we have two students of the month, and that is George Berhard. Science is a favorite subject. Is he present? And Nicole Michelle, or Michael. For Douglas High School, we have Clarissa Ortiz and Jasmine Lomeli for Students of the Month. Clarissa, a favorite subject is English, and she's thinking about working with children. And Jasmine's favorite subject is art and wants to be an artist. And students on a roll, Cassandra Quijada Sanchez. Favorite subject is math and wants to be a doctor. And David Davalos Chavez. Favorite subject is math and wants to be a law officer. I think some students walked in late. Gustavo Valencia from Ferris. And Gustavo was a student on a roll. Favorite subject are math and grammar and wants to be a police officer. Did anybody else walk in late? So governing board and parents, these are our students of the month and students on a roll for Douglas Unified School District. And Mr. Nunez is going to attempt to take a picture for our,
Some people came in late.
There's somebody else, yeah.
okay.
One more.
No, some more.
Angel Cruz from Joe Carl's.
Angel Cruz.
Okay, Angel Cruz just walked in, student on a roll. Favorite subject is science and wants to be a professional baseball player.
Thank you. Stand right there so your parents can take a picture.
Parents, if you'd like to get some pictures, you can get closer. One more. Students, we're going to ask you to line up, follow the leader, follow Mr. Nunez, and we're going to shake the governing board's hands.
Congratulations. Good job.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Well done. Congratulations. Congratulations. Well done, very good. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Congratulations. Congratulations. Well done. Thank you.
Good job. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Parents, we're going to start the regular meeting now, so if you want to, we'll take a minute to let you leave. I'm sure you don't want to sit here and listen to all we're going to go through, so we'll take a minute and let you leave with your child if you wish.
The long hair. She's getting curly.
Okay, members of the board, we're under 1E2, governing board member reports. Mr. Ramos, do you have anything?
No.
Mr. Lindeman?
No, thank you.
No, thank you, sir.
You're fine, all right. Ex officio student member, you know, Jimena hasn't been here in about the last 3 meetings. Is there a problem?
It was the last the last meeting and this one, right? She's part of the athletics.
Athletic trainers.
Trainers, and so she has to be there for,
What's the reason tonight?
I,
Soccer game. She's an athletic trainer for the soccer
Okay.
game.
Business report, Mr. Soto.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and board members. I do have the cash reports, the budget balance reports for the month of January that you have in front of you. We still have almost 7% of the M&O budget unencumbered. And so it was a good number to have at this point. Any questions you might have out of the balance? And also I have the travel report for the month of January.
Okay, first of all, anything on the budget, members of the board? What about travel?
Mr. President, I had a question going through this travel report. There's an awful lot of days that, at all levels, that are being spent out of the district, and of course, that costs a lot of money. And I'm just wondering, are we getting a good bang for the buck for all these conferences and traveling that's being done?
you want me to address that? Or is that it just?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Lindeman, I am aware, and, as I look at this every month too, but I can assure you that no travel is just for the sake of going out and spending our dollars. And so as rough as it is for travel, because it's not easy on teachers or on any district employee to travel, many of our trainings are held up in Phoenix in the Tucson area. There's rarely something that comes down here. And so that causes, our employees to have to be out. So everything gets approved by, a principal, or it even comes through my office for final approval. So we're very cautious in what we send or what we go to as well. We just don't want to just go to travel just for the sake of traveling. So we are seeing, we are getting our bang for the buck.
Thank you.
But we're careful.
And as you know, part of our elected position is to oversee
Sure.
the expenses of the taxpayer's dollar. And I was just wondering, some of these conferences look duplicative, each year, and I'm just wondering, how are we going to be assured that we're getting fresh information and it's not a rehash of previous
Yeah.
travel and things like that?
And the conferences, major conferences that are put on by ADE or ASBA, for example, they're yearly conferences. And so you'll see the same one. You may remember Leading Change. Leading Change happens every summer, year to year. This name doesn't change, but the content of the conference changes. OALIS Conference is a conference you'll see, and that is about a 3-day conference up in Tucson. That is yearly, but the content of the conference and the presentations do change. And we do try to rotate at least the staff that goes to the conferences so that we're not sending the same people over and over again. I will tell you that in the last 2 years, more of our classified staff has been sent to training because usually there would never be training possibilities for them. And I will say business office employees, new student center office, and even some of our, I believe Mr. Parent Human Resource has not had the opportunity in the past to go out for training. And so there's been some of that hadn't happened before. But I can assure you that we'll be even more careful and in sending and looking at what conferences we are all going to.
Okay, thank you. And I did have one other question to Mr. Soto. We did talk about, and I think the board directed the expansion of our boardroom for our parents and our students.
Correct.
And I was just wondering where that, what the status of that is.
I talked to Nano Quiñones, which is the maintenance supervisor, and he's in the process of looking at the whole structure of this room and the next room because that's the option to remove that wall. We just want to make sure that that's not a bearing wall. He needs to go to the basement and just make sure that it's possible to do. We don't know still. I mean, there's a lot of things that come into place and to play to make a decision, but we're looking into that as we speak. So, I mean, I cannot give you an exact time
Date.
frame or a date, but we're looking into that possibility to do that soon.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
I'll be home.
Speaking of construction and remodeling and those kinds of things, what's the status of the SFB as far as the monies that, and some of the projects that we have in the hopper right now regarding, specifically RBMS? The doors down there have been an issue for 2, maybe 3 years.
Correct.
And we've already gone through everything, all of the legal procedures and everything we need to do. I understand you have codes. Why hasn't anything been done with those doors yet?
We were kind of struggling with some of the quotes from the vendors, potential vendors, to do that. I know the process started with the BRG, the Building Renewal Grant, with the SFB, but they're the ones that require these 3 quotes. It's been kind of hard to get those in place, especially because locally we only have one major vendor for doors and windows, which is in Sierra Vista, and most of the other people have to go with them to actually get quotes and give us quote. Again, I also talked to Nano, who's in charge of getting those quotes to kind of expedite this thing. The SFB, as most of you know, and I don't know if you have gotten any emails about, the director of SFB resigned a couple of weeks ago. So there's a lot of uncertainty on that department. We don't know yet what's going to happen. The state and the governor or some of the representatives are leaning towards eliminate that department and give the money back to the schools directly, so we can manage and do whatever we need to do. There's some other few projects with them, and the major one is the construction of a couple more, if one or more wings at the high school, because of the projection and the overcapacity of the high school. We are in the process right now where we already selected the architect firm that is gonna do the design for those potential classrooms and whatever needs to be done, because we also know that there's an issue with the cafeteria that needs to be bigger, because it only houses 200 kids when we have 1,500 students at the high school. So there's a lot of projects with the SFB right now. I'm still trying to get a hold of our liaison. We're going back and forth with emails, but I don't know if probably in the near future I'm going to have to go visit him directly and sit down and talk to him and talk about these open BRGs or projects that we have with them. After talking to one of the staff members of the SFB, they're saying that they want to clean up everything, and they want to. One of the main issues that they're having problems there is because the turnaround on getting these things done is taking too long. So that's why they want to clean up the list of projects they have. So obviously, I want to take advantage and act fast and talk to him about our projects first, and see where we can go from there.
And then also, and it's related at RBMS as well. There's the question about the Beverly had started it, and I think you
The
guys are
shade.
following up.
Yes, we are. We're working on that.
Putting the cantilevers out there and then making an awning. You're working on that still?
And that's with our food service director. So that wouldn't be something that's going
wouldn't
to
be
go
an
through an
SFB.
SFB. Because
No,
if that
exactly.
goes,
I said it was related, but
Yes.
it
Yes.
has to do with.
Yes, because if we were to put that through SFB, we'd be waiting a few more years. But the RBMS stores are a priority because that is a safety concern, and I am very frustrated with that whole SFB process myself. And quotes have been done. Oh, well, this is missing. Redo the quotes. Well, this is missing, and so I'm pushing that, and that should be all the new quotes. That again for the third time should be finalized this week and resubmitted.
Right.
The other option for those doors, just so that that was discussed with our maintenance department, was that we could go and just replace the hardware, right?
Right, retrofit the existing doors.
The existing doors, so that we could get locking mechanisms on those doors.
Like the bars.
The bars, and just redo that and just get it done. Those doors have been there probably for many years. So Mr. Quinones's thought was just let's finish the process and get those new doors, not just replace the hardware. And so that was a conversation I had last week.
Have you got any other construction going on? And I know it's still a school facilities board issue too, but, and you mentioned at the high school, do you have anything else going on that's major in the district as far as construction is concerned?
There's a few projects. I know the maintenance department is working on remodeling Paul Huber, the principal's office. We still have that major project for the summer for the high school.
We haven't started it.
That we haven't started. That's something that we need to start planning and buy the supplies needed. We don't know yet if that's going to be done in phases, like office by office, or if it's just going to be during the summer. So that's something that we need to sit down and plan. And I think those are the two major.
Yes, and so Douglas High School administrative offices is what we're talking about, and that is a conversation we started last year with the principal. And so knowing that the offices are being occupied while school's in session, it is not a project that we'd be willing to start. So we, had conversations and meetings, and then obviously this building here and this room is alongside with the renovation of the administrative offices at Douglas High School.
Did you say there was construction of remodeling of the principal's office at Huber? How did that supersede the high school? The high school's been in the offing for almost 3 years
It's something
now.
that maintenance department could go into right away because it wouldn't affect like student traffic or parents traffic. And it was an easier project to do and quicker.
Was it budgeted for? Was that construction budget, that remodeling budgeted for?
Not specifically. I don't specifically budget for projects. I give the maintenance department supply monies where they can purchase the materials needed for those projects. But for this one that we know for sure that is coming for the high school, that's something that I need to plan and do it individually, not just the lump sum
No, but
or an amount.
I know that they get allocated a certain amount of money for their sites, but anything that's of any significance, of any change or anything, that's definitely got to be pre-approved by you, right?
Right,
As was the high school.
correct.
And so the high school's still something that's being looked at?
It's being looked at, yes, because it was a plan to start during the summer and hopefully have it done. So the planning meetings have taken place, and probably next month we'll start the funding, budgeting, and how we're going to take on this project.
Okay, members of the board, anything else? Okay, Mr. Nunez.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, superintendent. Currently, our numbers are looking at 4,112 students currently enrolled in the district. And so, as you know, we do also have we currently do have our open enrollment process in place. So we're seeing a high volume of parents coming in to enroll their students into our schools. But currently, as it stands, it's 4,112 students.
How is the enrollment syncing with your expectation on revenues?
Obviously not what we expected, and it's. I will say that it's kind of typical every year. We see a decrease in December, November, December, but then we get an increase in the months of January and February. Most of the time is kids that come back from the charter schools, from the other schools we have. Obviously, right now it's a significant decrease from what it was last year, but I'm pretty confident that during this year, during this month, that we're going to see it back to where it should be.
So when you're looking at the budget now, and you're already starting it, right?
Yes.
When we look at salary increases for staff, do you, and I think we've kind of said it before, that you look beyond the state formula, and what are we now? We're on the last 5%?
Correct.
But do you look beyond that to see if there's any other monies that
Yeah, of course.
might be able to be allocated over and above that so that we can catch up with
Yes.
with some of the salaries for our people?
Yes, and like I said before, the governor's plan was to give 20% in increase to teachers in 3 years. So far, we've done 14, because you remember they gave us a 10%, but that didn't include the benefits that we need to pay for those salaries. So the teachers were kind enough to take just 9% that first year, and then we did 5. So my plan is to at least give them 6. We're going to get only funded for 5%. We're going to get an increase for 5% to cover the 20.
Right.
But I'm going to do my best to actually give them the 6% to at least match the 20. Now, classified employees is a different story, but also keep in mind that they got bumped to $12 an hour minimum wage. But that's another salary schedule that we need to look at, because remember a few years ago everybody was lumped on the minimum wage, and then now eventually every year I'm able to put them where they're supposed to be. So that's another issue that I need to look at. Definitely, we need to look at all of the salaries, all of them, because again, administrators, it's not as good as or comparable to the other districts that we have around. And sometimes it's not even worth it to become an administrator, because it says, I'm making as much as a teacher, so why even bother to become an administrator? So overall, of course, I'm going to have to look at salaries,
revenue.
but also staffing. We've been getting a lot of special needs kids showing up, and remember that special education funding is still on a previous year funding. So I always have to have some kind of cushion to be prepared for all those kids that show up and bring them the one-on-one assistance that they require. So far this year, it's been, I don't have the exact number, but it's close to almost 10 IAs that we have to come out with for those one-on-one kiddos that we have to provide services to. So there's a lot of issues, but like you all know, 85 to 90% of the whole school budget is salaries and benefits. So I'm going to try to have as much carryover as possible to this year, so I can probably supplement those increases that the board would like to see.
Of course, you mentioned, and we've said it too, we always want to make sure that we include administrators. When we say
Yes.
staff administrative, always the equity should be there. But being fiscally responsible,
Correct.
especially the board, we want you to surprise us and come back and say, you know what, we're not only going to give them that 5 and maybe that 6, but we found some extra money that we're going to come up with, that we're going to even increase it more than that. We want you to surprise us. We want you to do that.
All right.
Board members, I mean, but we say that all the time, but he deals with that every day. He knows what he's got. He knows what the numbers are. And you know, and I'm not abrogating for or trying to be partisan here, but it's easy for administrations everywhere to say, well, we're doing the best we can, and we've only got X amount of dollars, and the governor giving us 5 and 5. We know that, but what happened to our money? You know, we want to see if he's got any money as well that he can throw on top of that for all of our staff. Includes everybody. We don't have to always say that. But I always want to say that, because now when he's looking at those numbers and he's looking at that budget, and he should be able to come back and say, you know, I've looked everywhere. And it's a given that they're going to get the 5 or the 6. You notice he said 6. Because that means he probably can do that. But we want him to do more if he can, correct? Yes. You just got the message from the board. You just heard it. No, we're serious about that.
Well, and if I may, Mr. President, I mean, I think those are conversations that we've been having only for reasons inclusive of recruitment efforts. I mean, this is the season, and so from administrative to teacher, and so as we're recruiting out there and having some competitors inclusive of some of our neighboring districts, we have to take a really close look at that as well, because we want the best, obviously, for our students and Douglas Unified, but we need to be competitive as well. So I appreciate you taking a close look
The
at that.
big issue in this district, CLL, and we're going to have a discussion on that specifically in the near future, correct? But since that is a major consideration in this district, then I think the administration should consider recommending to the board that maybe anybody that's certified or highly qualified in that area, because that is a
It will be hard to fill
highly
position.
skillful obligation,
Special ed
and it's a
math.
dire need in the district, that you also come back and say, we're going to recommend that you give these highly skilled ELL teachers more money.
And I would
like we
fully
do.
support that, Mr. Bahrain. Currently, our math, science,
And sped.
and sped teachers get an additional amount of, I think it's 2,000?
Three.
$3,000 added to their contracts. And if a teacher has never been an ELD teacher, and I'm speaking from personal experience, it is, I'm not saying it's not tougher, it's not more stress than a regular teacher, but it is a lot of work. And so our ELL teachers, year after year, do get burnt out because we tend to put our best teachers to teach our ELD kids. And sometimes that burnout is excessive and it takes a toll on them. So that's when our principals start saying, you know what, I need to give this teacher a break. But I can guarantee you that would be an incentive.
Okay, yeah, well,
So we'll look at that.
again, it's just that from time to time, we have to philosophically say, you know, what our feelings are towards salaries, and you've got the message. And Mr. Soto, I'm sure you're going to come back soon and tell us, you know what, I found some extra money, and we're going to be able to add this to it.
Yeah, yeah. Again, we're getting ready to budget season, at least for me. But I won't get a clear picture not until probably mid-March, almost at the end of March, when
Or
we know
beginning
for
of
sure how much we're gonna get, what will be the cost of living adjustment that the state is gonna give us. So all of that stuff. I can start calculating and see how much it's going to cost me, but in terms of revenue, I won't know for sure until probably the end of March, for sure.
Okay. Anything else on that, members of the board? Dr.
One
Gomez?
question, because it does make a difference. You projecting that you're gonna need new wings at the high school? Now, those projections still exist, that you think you're gonna have a higher enrollment there?
Right. Again, the projection was done by the SFB, and they projected almost 900 more students in eight years. Okay, so that's why they give us that 87,000 square feet projection for new classrooms and stuff. Again, I won't know for sure how many kids are going to show up for the high school next year, but if we're going to have those classrooms, we're going to need more teachers and furniture and all that stuff. I'm hopeful that we're going to have enough money on the 16 million that the SFB gave us to be able to furnish those classrooms, but the staffing, it's going to be on us. So I don't know. That will be some kind of planning that we're going to have to sit down with Mr. Walker and see what the projections look for next year and what are the classes that they want to provide to the students and all that stuff. So again, it's a lot of stuff that is not just here's the money, and because we need to know for sure how many more new staff members we're going to need. And it's probably not just going to be regular classrooms, like I said before. Special ed is increasing tremendously, so there's probably going to be a need of hiring more teachers and have more classrooms for those kids. So it's a lot. It's not impossible, of course, but that's something that it's going to require a lot more time and a lot more savings on this year's money, so we can have carryover to be able to do what we want to do for next year.
Okay. All right. Do you have anybody who wants to address the board?
No, sir.
Don't go to sleep over there. Item 2A, approval of the following consent agenda items of payroll and expense vouchers. Members of the board entertain a motion to do that.
I move.
By Dr. Gomez.
Second.
By Mr. Lindeman. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item 3, discussion action on the approval of certified hires. Mrs. Samaniego.
As presented, just a few emergency subs teachers and 2 current employees that are, well, 1 current employee and then another one for assistant track coach. And these are just, those last 2 are addendas.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
So moved.
By Mr. Ramos, second by Mr.
Second.
Lindeman. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Item B, discussion action on approval of classified hires. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, and you see many ESS or special ed instructional aids because of the increase of students needing that one-on-one IA support, so as presented.
Okay, any, first of all, entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
By Mr. Lindeman, second by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Berrien?
Yes. Item C, discussion action on approval of classified retirement. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, you have one retirement request, and that is Ms. Joanne Wright, and she'll be leaving us sometime in April. Very sad to see Ms. Jo leave, integral part of curriculum and federal programs department for many years, and so she has decided to retire.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
By Mr. Lindeman.
Second.
By Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? I have to echo what you have to say about Ms. Wright. Sometimes people in positions like that, for the tenure that they have in those positions, sometimes they're not really recognized or appreciated for all the work they
She
do.
here? She's not here.
Is she
She's
here?
not here?
But they do become such an
Vested
integral part
of-
of that operation that it's hard. I sure hope you can replace her. Yeah. Anyway, we have a motion on the floor.
Yes, sir.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Berrien?
Yes. Item D. Well, first of all, do we have any new hires here tonight? You want to come up and introduce yourself, please, and tell us where you're going to be and what position you're going to have.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to meet you. Okay, my name is Rosalba Loreto. I'm a new hire for Sarah Marley as an instructional aide for SPED. I'll be working with them.
Very good.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Oh, my God,
Miss
these
Patty?
walls are echoing.
Good evening.
Now you get to be on the other side.
You used to be sitting up here.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to work for DUSD. I'm the parent liaison for Joel Carlson Elementary School. Thank you.
Welcome.
Nice to
Welcome
have
back.
you. Nice to have you, Patricia.
Thank you.
Do you have any other new hires? Item D, discussion action on approval of addendum. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, and these are for high school teachers doing the folklorico.
Entertain a motion to approve
So move.
by Mr. Sabal.
Second.
By Mr. Lindeman. Do you have folklorico at any of the middle schools anymore? Or do they do both?
Yes, Huber does. And so they have a teacher that is, she was a dance teacher, so folklorico at Douglas High School, folklorico at Huber Middle School.
What happened to our BMS?
I don't know, Mrs. Rodriguez can answer that. I mean, Ray Bahrain hasn't had a folklorico, I would say, for many years, even when I was principal there. And probably this comes from the teacher's interest. We had a teacher at Ray Bahrain Middle School that was Lisa Morales, or is Lisa Morales, and at one point she was doing folklorico. Then she got involved in drama club, and so that became one priority. But Mrs. Rodriguez, that's a task for
Well,
next year.
They were the flagship.
Yes.
I mean, that was the precursor to all of that was from our BMS, wasn't it?
Yeah, if I could call Mrs. Morales, that'd be great, then we could have both programs, but unfortunately, we're limited.
Yeah.
I think
So
that
she's-
program started with Ms. Garino down there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
based
That's
on
right.
teachers' interest and their experiences with the different activities that then, vouches out to the different types of activities that the school.
Okay.
If I could hire a teacher in the future that,
Has it.
could teach for us and possibly.
Dance.
I'll be on the lookout for that.
Well, yeah, no, I just asked the question. I mean, that's so inherent down there to
And
that
you know what-
culture and that pride, that I think that would go hand in hand. Not that Paul Huber isn't, but anyway. All right. Do we have a motion on the
Yes,
floor?
sir.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann,
Yes.
Mr. Sabal,
Yes.
Dr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain.
Yes. Item E, discussion action on the approval of volunteers. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented.
Entertain a motion to approve
So
Move to.
moved.
by Mr. Sabal,
Second.
by Mr. Lindeman. Any discussion? Let me just make a statement here. With the volunteers, and I think this was, we had an informal discussion regarding orientation, not only for volunteers, but for any new employee in the district as to what the policies are, what the limitations are, what the expectations, all of those things. Do you actively do that? Volunteers especially, because they're not part of the actual school environment, and there's so many things that become involved there. I think the district is dealing with an issue now regarding some things that possibly, I won't get into it, but I think it's very, very important. I think it's paramount that you have an orientation for substitutes. We've talked about that before. And you do that with the volunteers as well.
We could always improve upon it. And so I think currently it's somewhat at a lower level, but I think it's something that we definitely are looking at, and the HR team recognizes it, and so that's something that we do want to improve upon.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for just to say you're a volunteer, the
And
board
you show
approved you,
up.
and you just throw them into the mix, and they don't know anything about what the rules are dealing with students, all of those things. Okay, do we have a motion on the
Yes,
floor?
sir.
Mr. President?
Yes.
One thing, but does that also include background checks?
Yes, there's a background
Yes,
check
uh-huh,
all along.
yes.
And fingerprints, right?
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos,
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann,
Yes.
Mr. Sabal,
Yes.
Dr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain.
Yes. Item F, discussion action on the approval of a classified transfer. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, and Shannon used to be the parent liaison at Joe Carlson, so she's moving up to the secretary position. So as presented.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve
Move to approve.
by Mr.
Second.
Lindeman. Second by Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos,
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann,
Yes.
Mr. Sabal,
Yes.
Dr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain.
Yes. Item 3G, discussion action on approval of donations. Mrs. Samaniego.
As presented, and this is by our Douglas Noon Lions Club, and it is donation of U.S. flags for all first graders.
Okay. You have a motion to approve? By
So
Dr.
moved.
Gomez.
I approve, yeah.
Second by
So
Mr. Sabal. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos,
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann,
Yes.
Mr. Sabal,
Yes.
Dr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain.
Yes. Item H, discussion action on approval to renew the regional cooperative agreement southeast between the Arizona State Schools for the Deaf and Blind and Douglas Unified School District number 27. Ms. Samaniego.
Okay, as presented in governing board, this is an agreement that is renewed every 5 years. And so we have some students in our district that currently receive services through the Arizona Deaf and Blind. And so this is an agreement that needs to be in place so that our kids can continue receiving those individual services. And we have about 11, 12 students around in the district that get those services.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Do they send down people?
Yes.
I move to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sabal. And I just had one question regarding that. Where it talks about transportation in the agreement, and I have it highlighted here, but it says, to the extent legally permissible, providing transportation necessary to enable its qualified students to access the program services are provided by ASB. Does the district pay parents at any time? Do we pay parents mileage to get any of the services that we need or anything like that?
No.
I don't think.
No,
Okay.
I don't think we've ever,
Okay, that's good. All right, future items, members of the board.
Did they vote?
We vote.
we
We have
need
to
to
vote.
vote
We need to
on the
vote.
Oh,
agreement.
I'm sorry, we didn't vote on that?
No, sir.
Well, then we're not going to do it.
We need to.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos,
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann,
Yes.
Mr. Sabal,
Yes.
Dr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain.
Yes. Future agenda items. Announcements?
Again, parent and teacher conference is this Thursday. President's Day is on Monday, February the 17th. And our next regular board meeting is on March the 3rd.
Item 6,
Yeah.
the governing board may vote to go into executive session to consider the disciplinary recommendation based upon the hearing officer's findings of fact and conclusions of law, concernings and discipline of student A, followed by consideration of the hearing officer's recommendation based on the findings and concerning the discipline of student B. In each case, the board may accept the recommendation of the hearing officer to expel or long-term suspend the student, modify the recommendation of the hearing officer, or reject the recommendation of the hearing officer. Pursuant to ARS 15-843A, the board can discuss and vote on the findings and recommendations of the hearing officer in executive session. So I'm going to entertain a motion to go into executive session to do
Move to
that.
go into executive session.
By Mr. Ramos, second by Mr. Lindeman. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. You want to take a break, members of the board? Okay, we're back in open session. The parents, la familia del muchacho puede esperar hasta que termine la junta. No, se pueden quedar ahí, pero la decisión te va a rendir la señora Samaniego. Ella le va a decir lo que hemos decidido. ¿Está bien? Okay. And then let me just say, for the, probably for the benefit of all the administration, the board noticed in the log, in the documents here, that there was some things that had transpired prior to this happening. And I just want you guys to know that the board took some of the incidents regarding one of the individuals very, very seriously, and it had to do with, let's say, with respect, and the way it was exhibited towards one of our employees. Mrs. Samaniego will discuss that thoroughly with you, and it came up at least twice in the documentation given to the board. And we want you to know that during the executive session, which of course can't reveal, but we consider that to be very, very severe, and she will talk to you about that, okay? So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn
Move to adjourn.
by Mr. Lindeman, second by Mr.